everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought it'd be a pretty interesting idea if I did like a sort of introduction video to all my projects, everything I'm working on for 2021. I realized that when I talk about my projects in my video, it can be a little bit confusing since you don't exactly know what I'm talking about, or you might be curious to know what I'm talking about. Either way, I thought it'd be pretty fun to discuss my different projects, plus what I might be working on later down the line. Anything in 2021 that I plan on working on will be introduced in this video. So I hope it brings some clarification to those wondering, or perhaps it will give you the courage to talk about your own project, since it took me a while to even think about telling people my code name for it. It's not like I'm scared of my idea being stolen or anything. I'm just scared to talk about an idea and then other people thinking that idea is trash, or that I shouldn't write about it, or that the concept is like weird or shouldn't even be a concept, and that's why it's taken me so long. So the first project that I'll talk about is one that I probably talk about the most, and that is my dystopian trilogy. I don't think I've ever called them anything but a dystopian trilogy, but to me, I also called them TA #1, 2, and 3, you know, their respective books. They're called TA because I like giving my books code names that basically summarize the concept. So I can't really tell you what TA stands for because I'd be giving my entire book away and then there'd be no point in reading it. TA #1, 2, and 3, or just my dystopian trilogy, is a dystopian trilogy set in America in the future. It basically is like the way life is after something happened that destroyed the way they know life. It's very hard to talk about because it's such a specific premise that if I even reveal one thing, I basically spoil the entire thing, because you can piece them together and understand how my current world is, or how my character's current world is. And it is in third person, but it focuses on this one character, Aveline. I've drawn her in a previous video if you want to go check that out. It's somewhere up here. It'll also be in the description if you're interested in watching the video where I draw her. I'm not a good artist, so don't expect to see like some amazing portrait. It's just a very simple sketch of my character, and it basically follows her point of view in this new world sort of thing, and she's just trying to navigate through everything thrown at her. It is dystopian, so the government is involved a lot in this, and like specifically this group that come from the government that think that they can control the remaining population and that kind of thing. That's basically what TA is about, and the first book is written already. I'm currently outlining, brainstorming the second book. The second book does have a rough outline. I also made this into a video. You can see it here as well. It's in the description as well. I did actually outline this in my very first video on this channel, so it's got a very rough Save the Cat outline, but I haven't properly gone into depth. Just a few days ago I figured out the names of characters that get introduced in this book. So progress is coming along slowly, but I hope to start drafting this mid-February, maybe March. I don't plan on it being my Camp NaNoWriMo project, so I don't really expect to wait that long, but I'm not going to rush outlining or anything like that. The second project that you already know about if you've watched my videos is LMC/HAC. This is just basically one of them is the concept, one of them is the working title. That's why I call them both. So this book is basically about this like awkward guy who doesn't really know anything about friendships or relationships or really how to socialize, and then one day something happens and somebody that he sort of knows gets involved in his life and tries to help him become a better person, tries to help him solve what he thinks is his problem, but turns out it's not really his problem. It turns out it's like very minuscule compared to what his actual problem is. That's the very simplified version of the plot. It is a standalone, and it is like roughly gonna be 70,000 words, something like that. It's very hard to talk about what's going to happen in the plot without spoiling it or telling too much. That's basically what LMC is about. The next project I haven't really talked about on this channel because this is something I've started January 1st as part of my goals for 2021. That is another video I'll link up and down if you're interested in watching what my goals are for 2021. But I basically said how I wanted to work on 2 projects this year, one of them being the second book in my dystopian trilogy, which I've already talked about, and the other being the first book of this series. And this I refer to as my NPS series. NPS is basically the initials of the concept that I have for this. It's very complicated how I give my projects names, but it is known as NPS. NPS is basically like urban fantasy turned... It's very complicated to talk about. It starts off urban fantasy, but as we go along it gets more and more involved in the fantasy world. So it's really hard to try and pinpoint what sort of fantasy it is, but it is fantasy, and it's to do with like magic and spells and magical items. And let me tell you what it's about before. So it's basically about this magical place, and my main character is sort of an outcast, and she gets picked on for this, and nobody really likes her because she's different from everyone else at the place she is. And she starts attending school, it becomes even more complicated because, you know, teenagers are not very nice, and she's a teenager, she's surrounded by teenagers, and she's used to a very sheltered life, so being here is different for her. And then one day something happens and she gets the blame, so she's out to prove she isn't the person that did this, and in this process she finds this whole other history, this whole other thing. She finds all of this new stuff out, and we really get immersed into the history and what happened, and there's a royal family in this that we investigate as well, so I'm super excited. Right now I think it's roughly 6 books, which is wild, but it could be more, it could be less. I haven't really outlined yet. The only book I'm pretty sure of what's gonna happen is the first book. I currently have all my characters outlined and the first book brainstormed, but I still have a lot to do. I still have to figure out exactly how the magic system works, exactly how this specific thing happened, and why this thing that happened and why the antagonist did this. It's still a lot to figure out, but that's basically the main thing of the story. That's basically what it is about, and the first book loosely touches on this overarching plot. The next project I'm going to talk about is also yet another project I didn't talk about, and technically it is not part of my goals, but this is like a project that I'm thinking about working on this year. Earliest would be NaNoWriMo if I would start working on it, but I'm not putting any goals or anything like that. It's just something that I think would be fun to work on this year if I somehow manage to draft everything else quickly. So this project is under the codename HFP. Again, it is the initials for what the project's concept is, and it is so vague that I can actually tell you what the initials are. So the initials of this project is Historical Fantasy Project. That's what it is, HFP. It's basically what it says on the tin. It's a historical fantasy project. This is actually a trilogy of books. It was originally supposed to be a standalone, but then once I started brainstorming what this book could be while sitting down and waiting for my mum one night, I realised that the plot I have to fit my characters' arcs and, you know, to fulfill the story, it would be far too big to just fill up a book, and I could simplify the plot, but then I'd be missing out on some elements I really wanted to explore. So it's a trilogy, so it's urban fantasy set in the Victorian times. And right now all I can say, it is about this lady living in the Victorian times, and she realises she isn't like everyone else. She likes doing these things that normally women would be looked down for doing, like gambling and drinking. And then one night she gets involved with somebody who is a target for an assassination. And this person, spoiler alert, is from the magical world, which is where the magic comes into this historical fantasy. That's basically what HFP is about. That's it. This is a project that isn't really a project, like it's not a novel, it's not even a novella, it is a short story, because I thought it'd be fun to write a short story and understand how to revise, how to redraft, how to get beta reader feedback. Yes, I'm gonna get beta reader feedback on a short story. This short story doesn't have a code name. I literally came up with it today as we speak in the middle of a class, since I'm doing online school currently for the first week back. The fact that I came up with it all today, like I had the idea of what I wanted for a while. This short story is basically about how lovely and heartwarming first love is, but also the downsides and the heartache to first love. So it's basically looking at first love between two young teenagers, like roughly 15 years old. These two teenagers are like completely different people. My main character is on the autistic spectrum, so her thought process is like different compared to someone who wouldn't be on the autistic spectrum. And then the love interest, he's like confident and loud, so his emotions and feelings aren't really like the best portrayed to my main character. And it's basically the story between how first love can be, both the goods and the bads. I might one day release this short story if you're interested in reading it once it's done. It is just for my practice. It's something I'm planning on working on February time, you know, maybe for Valentine's Day, since it is a first love story. That's it. But those are all of my projects. I tried telling you as much as I could without feeling like too scared about it. I don't want to say too much in case I spoil it, but I don't want to say too little and basically not tell you anything. You'll be hearing a lot more about these in future videos since I am working on them in 2021. I do have goals for each, like where I want them to be by the end. And if you see my goals videos, you sort of have an idea what I'm going to do with these books and projects. And yeah, I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Let me know what projects you're currently working on, what projects you want to work on in 2021. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one, which will be this Saturday, because yes, I'm uploading twice a week now. So today's Wednesday, I'll upload on Saturday, 10 AM GMT, Greenwich Mediterranean time, UK time. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!